After Earth was Will Smith's attempt at launching a blockbuster film franchise to ensure his son had superstardom ahead of him. But unfortunately for the Smith family, the movie was a major dud both critically and commercially, and ended up as a stain on the careers of everyone that was involved. So today, I want to revisit this film to explore the history behind it, find out why it failed, and offer up some of my personal thoughts on the project.
Jaden, most kids think their parents are so uncool and so embarrassing. You can't think that, can you?
Yeah, you can.
Really?
Yeah.
The idea for After Earth can actually be attributed to one of the main stars of the film, Will Smith. Will Smith initially envisioned the film on a much smaller scale, with it being about a father and son who get in a car crash in a remote region, with the son having to go out in the wilderness to save his father. However, Smith wanted a star-making blockbuster for his son, Jaden Smith, so he changed the premise a little bit. He kept the base story idea, but changed the setting, giving it a science fiction angle and setting it 1,000 years in the future. In fact, he intended for this film to be the first in a trilogy. Will Smith then contacted screenwriter Gary Whitta to help write and develop the project, who was most well known at the time for writing The Book of Eli, but would also go on to write Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Next, Smith would contact M. Night Shyamalan to direct the flick. Smith and Shyamalan had always wanted to make a film together, but it never lined up. However, now was the perfect time, as Shyamalan was impressed with the script and signed on to both direct and co-write this new project, which had the working title of 1000 AE. At first, Will Smith was not going to star in the film with his son, and was only in the producer role. However, as the project developed, he shifted into the actor role instead. Once the stars, writer, and director were all on board, they pitched the movie to Sony Pictures in December of 2011, and it was officially given the green light. But there's more to the story. As the 2014 Sony hacks would later reveal, not only did Will Smith pitch Sony on the first film, but he also had grand plans for a sequel, a live-action TV show, an animated series, webisodes, a video game, theme park attractions, documentaries, comics, and all kinds of consumer products. He wanted this property to be as big as the MCU. Now, Sony wasn't fully on board with Will Smith's grand cross-media franchise. However, they had a strong working relationship with him that they didn't want to squander. Early scripts had Will Smith in a much smaller role, but Sony wanted to ensure that he was in the film as much as possible to cash in on his star status. Principal photography began in February of 2012, with much of the filming taking place in Costa Rica, California, and Pennsylvania. Not only would After Earth be the first M. Night Shyamalan film to be shot on digital, but it was also the first Sony movie to be shot in the 4K digital format. However, all the visual effects shots for the film were done in 2K to save on money and time. So in reality, only about 2/3 of the film is in 4K. The original cut of the movie was around 2 hours and 10 minutes long, but after some poor test screenings, it was cut down to 1 hour and 40 minutes. As a result, much of the supporting cast, such as Christopher Reviews, Lincoln Lewis, and Isabel Fuhrman, were cut way down or cut out altogether. The marketing of the film also proved to be a bit of a challenge. Contrary to all his other films, Sony decided not to include Shyamalan's name on a lot of the trailers and promotional material. Here's a quote from Sony's worldwide marketing and distribution chairman, Jeff Blake. "Night is, without a doubt, a world-class filmmaker who we are thrilled to team up with on this project. Together, we decided to focus our campaign on both the action and both Will and Jaden, given that After Earth is an adventure story of a father and son." Honestly, if I went into this film completely blind, I would never have guessed it was an M. Night Shyamalan film. Out of every Shyamalan movie I have seen, this is definitely the one that feels the least like him. So Sony went all in on the Will Smith brand. In fact, they decided to hide that Will Smith's character gets injured in the film and spends almost the entire runtime in one room. Here's another quote from Sony's marketing team. "He's the star that everyone's looking forward to seeing, and it's best for moviegoers to assume he's a part of the action. It'd be disappointing to our audience to discover that he spends a majority of the film stuck in the ship." After Earth got a major promotional rollout with tie-in prequel books, comics, in-universe character journals, and even a mobile game. It's estimated that around $100 million was spent on marketing, on top of the $130 million to create the film. And when you also consider the theater's cuts, it was obvious that this film had a daunting task ahead of it at the box office. After Earth hit theaters on May 31st of 2013, with an opening weekend gross of $27 million, coming in at number 3 in the box office behind Fast and Furious 6 and Now You See Me. Domestically, it would make $60 million, and overseas it would rake in $183 million for a total worldwide gross of $243 million. And when everything was said and done, it was estimated that the film lost somewhere between $25 to $30 million. The reviews were not any better. as the film currently holds a 12% critic and 36% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. It also scored a 4.8 out of 10 on IMDb, a 1.7 out of 5 on Letterboxd, and a 33% on Metacritic. After Earth secured numerous Golden Raspberry nominations such as Worst Picture, Worst Director, Worst Screenplay, Worst Actor, Worst Supporting Actor, and Worst Screen Combo, with it winning the last 3. To make a very long story short, the film sucked. Even after the movie bombed in theaters, it would have lingering effects on everyone involved. Years later, in 2019, Shyamalan would publicly disown the film along with The Last Airbender, stating this: "I did a couple huge, big-budget CGI movies. There has always been this inexorable pull to join the group. A constant seduction in the form of whatever you want to tally, in the form of money or safety, ease, not getting criticized. I did these movies and I rightfully got crushed because they said, you don't believe in yourself, you don't believe in your own voice, and you don't believe in your values. I really felt lost. It just didn't work. There's probably something Darwinian about all this." Will Smith would also call the fallout of After Earth the most painful failure of his career, with it being even worse than Wild Wild West, since he dragged his son into the film with him. This experience would also fracture their relationship, as following the movie's release, Jaden Smith asked about being emancipated from his parents. To quote Will Smith, "Jaden had faithfully done everything that I'd instructed him to do, and I had coached him into the worst public mauling he'd ever experienced." However, it seems like they were able to work through this failure together and are still on good terms with each other. But the film pretty much killed Jaden Smith's acting career, as he hasn't been in many other projects since 2013, choosing to pivot towards music instead. So now that we know the history behind the movie, let's analyze a few reasons why it failed.
Uniform check, cadets about.
You looking at my butt?
Despite the obvious fact that the movie was bad and got terrible reviews, I believe there are more factors at play which contributed to this film's failure. As after all, good movies fail all the time, and bad movies succeed all the time. So I would like to offer up some more reasons why After Earth floundered at the box office. One issue that plagued this film was Will Smith. Sony wanted Will Smith's name to carry this film, and they made sure to put him front and center on as much as they could. But despite all of this, it's still obvious that this is a Jaden Smith movie, with Will Smith taking a literal backseat for the entire runtime. The criticisms of nepotism probably didn't help the film either. We also have to consider that this was one of the low points of Will Smith's career. Smith took a break from acting from 2009 to 2011, so he had lost a bit of momentum that he gained in Hollywood and was no longer at the peak of his career. Yes, he did have Men in Black 3 in 2012, but that was a movie attached to an already established popular franchise. By the time he got back in the game, the industry had already changed quite a bit, as there was less of a focus on big-name stars to attract theatergoers, and it was more about franchises and brand recognition instead. In that 3-year break, big franchises like the MCU and Twilight had emerged and were dominating at the box office. Not only was this a low point for Will Smith's career, but it was also a low point for M. Night Shyamalan's career. His films had been progressively getting worse over the years, with The Last Airbender being the last film to come out before After Earth, which was an even bigger disaster, critically speaking. All that good faith that he had built up from early in his career was lost, and he didn't gain it back until The Visit and Split, which would come out just a few years later. I mean, it's no wonder that Sony didn't want to throw his name on After Earth at this point in time. So it was a bad time for Will Smith, a bad time for M. Night Shyamalan, but there's one more thing it was also a bad time for that we are forgetting: original sci-fi blockbusters. After Earth was coming hot off the heels of flops like Battleship, John Carter, Cowboys and Aliens, and Cloud Atlas. Even movies like Elysium and Oblivion, which also had huge A-list stars attached, had a hard time breaking even. Unless you were an already established IP or your name was Christopher Nolan, it wasn't the best time to drop a science fiction movie. This film also took another stumble when it came to the marketing. They tried a bit of viral marketing, hoping to recapture some of the magic that titles like District 9 and Cloverfield did, but the film simply didn't have enough intrigue or excitement around it. Just an example of one of these attempts at viral marketing came in the form of a lengthy hangout session with Will and Jaden Smith. This wasn't hosted on Facebook or Twitter, but on Google Plus of all places. You guys remember Google Plus, right? That totally awesome and popular social media platform created by Google that everyone was using and loved? Come on, you guys remember it.
Jaden had something he wanted to say to Elon Musk.
Additionally, I know I bring this up a lot, but I do it since it's usually always a factor, but there was competition at the box office. Fast and Furious 6 had come out just 1 week before After Earth and was a huge success. At the time, it was one of the biggest Memorial Day openers of all time, was the 6th highest grossing film of 2013, the then 3rd highest grossing film distributed by Universal, and the then highest grossing film in the franchise. After Earth was also battling against Now You See Me, which opened on the same day, and Star Trek Into Darkness and Iron Man 3, which had been out for weeks, but were still doing solid numbers. And on top of all of this, it got hit by Man of Steel just 2 weeks later. I think going for the summer blockbuster route just wasn't the right call for After Earth. The film also received some criticisms for what some viewers perceived as parallels to the teachings of Scientology through the plot, themes, dialogue, and imagery. But that's a whole can of worms that I don't want to get into in this video. And lastly, I would like to reiterate that the film just wasn't very good and didn't inspire positive word of mouth. And speaking of which, I would like to take the time to share some of my thoughts on why exactly it isn't very good.
You're like the little kid trying to be like his dad. You know, the little engine that could. I can make a movie. I can make a movie. I can make a movie. You like trying to come up.
Well,
so
we
it's
made
really
a movie. We made 3 movies together.
Yes, I mean, but you know what I'm saying. You get the similarity.
Yeah.
I think in another world, After Earth could have been a really great movie, just as long as it had a different cast, a different director, and a better script. So basically, if everything was different. What baffles me about After Earth is how boring it is. The plot follows a father and son who crash on Earth in the far-off future, which has now become uninhabitable and dangerous. The father is injured and the son must go off on his own to find the tail section of their spaceship and send out a distress signal so they can be saved. From that short description, you would think they could pull off some interesting world building and action scenes. But the filmmakers chose to make everything as dull and boring as possible. After Earth reminded me a lot of the 2023 film 65 starring Adam Driver. Very similar to After Earth, the plot of 65 follows a space pilot who gets marooned on Earth and must travel from point A to point B in order to escape the hostile environment, all while protecting a younger survivor. Instead of being stranded on a post-apocalyptic Earth in the future, they get stranded on Earth 65 million years in the past, in the Cretaceous period. And just like After Earth, 65 managed to make an interesting premise extremely boring. This is because neither movie takes the time to develop their characters by giving them an interesting backstory or compelling arc. Sure, Adam Driver shooting dinosaurs is cool for 5 seconds, but it would be far more effective if I actually cared about him in the first place. I didn't care about his character, and I didn't care about the characters in After Earth, who I must say have really stupid names. Will Smith's character is literally named Cypher Rage. That is like the type of name I would have given my character in my first D&D campaign back in high school. These man versus nature stories work best when our protagonist is coming up with creative solutions for each of the problems he encounters. We want to see our heroes think outside of the box and use their ingenuity to overcome the desperate situation they are in, and not be saved by coincidences and happenstance. But our main hero in this film, Katai Rage, manages to just stumble from issue to issue, being saved by the script. He's being pursued by monkeys, he jumps into the river and he's okay. He's being pursued by a giant eagle, the eagle takes him to the nest instead of killing him. Night is descending and he's about to freeze to death. Don't worry, the eagle will drag him to safety. It's not until the climax of the film where Katai actually gets some agency in his own story and starts solving problems himself. I'm just relieved they managed to get the bare minimum when it comes to developing this character's arc. Now, I'm going to make my criticisms on the acting brief, since I think making fun of child actors is a low blow, but all I'm going to say is that they should have gone with someone else. This film entirely hinges on the performance of the main actor, and Jaden Smith simply did not have the capabilities to pull it off. I mostly blame Will Smith for pushing his son into a role that he was not prepared for. Speaking of which, Will Smith is also really bad in this role, which sucks because he has proven many times before that he is a talented actor. This no-emotion military man angle Will Smith is taking for his character just doesn't work and results in a one-note performance. But of course, these performances are also not helped by a weak script. The first 2/3 of this movie just follow the same exact structure from scene to scene. There's a problem that Cypher tells Katai about and tells him not to freak out. Next, Katai, of course, freaks out. Then, Cypher explains what to do, but Katai doesn't listen and makes things worse. Next, Katai is saved by the script. And finally, Cypher yells at Katai and tells him he needs to listen to him. And then you rinse and repeat this cycle for the next 45 minutes. The world building in this universe also could have been a lot better. When it's revealed that they crash landed on Earth I thought we were in store for some cool post-apocalyptic landscape, but this film just follows our characters tromping through the jungle the entire time. I mean, this could have just been any random science fiction planet. If you are going to call your film After Earth and reiterate that this is Earth in the future, I thought that would factor a little bit more into the story. I was hoping to see some cool landscapes like from Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, where nature has overtaken the old world. But I was just given a generic jungle and I was let down. However, even with all the hate and criticisms I have thrown at this film, it's not like it's the worst thing in the world. Hell, it's not even the worst M. Night Shyamalan movie.
What? No!
I remember at the time this film came out, lots of people were acting like it was one of the worst movies of all time, and I think that response was partially because Shyamalan dropped The Last Airbender just 3 years before. After Earth is just a run-of-the-mill, below-average 2 out of 5 star movie. Some people will like it, it has a few redeeming qualities, and the worst sin it commits is being boring. Alright, I think I've said my piece, let's wrap it up.
Did you have a good time working with your dad?
Well, no, because he tricked me. I thought it was a comedy, but it was actually a drama. What does your dad do?
Keep my name out your mouth!
After Earth was a vanity project by the Smith family that cost over $200 million. It came at the wrong time for both Will Smith and M. Night Shyamalan's careers, and it simply wasn't good enough to inspire positive word of mouth. On top of that, it had some questionable marketing and was buried by other blockbusters in the summer season. So that's the story of After Earth, yet another franchise that never was. But what do you think about the film? Have you seen it? Why do you think it failed? I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. This has been Tom from Isenhart Productions, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week. And here's a clue for next week's video.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!